Welcome to the May 6th meeting of the Murfreesboro City Council. Vice Mayor Scales Harris has our prayer and our pledge.
Thank you, Mayor. Before I begin, Abby, Uncle Shane told me to tell you hello.
I didn't do that, but that's pretty good.
May we bow our heads? Dear Heavenly Father, we just come to you once more to say just thank you, Lord. We are not worthy at all to even speak to you, Lord, but through your grace and your mercy, we are here tonight. We ask a blessing on all of our frontline workers, Lord. Keep them safe. The teachers, the veterans, people in nursing homes, those that have lost loved ones. Lord, so much is happening in our world today. But you said to give it all to you, and that's what we do, Lord. But, Lord, we know that you're not pleased with our situation in the world today where we are letting violence take the place of peace, hate over love. Lord, we just ask that you put your arms of protection around us to change minds and change hearts. And, Lord, if it be your will also just to mold me in the type of person you have me to be. I cannot thank you enough, Lord, for the time I've been gone and you took care of my body, you took care of my home, and you took care of my family. And Lord, continue to take care of, this is a selfish request, but please continue to take care of me and my body. A couple of months, I'll be 69, and things happen. But Lord, I just ask that you just keep me in your arms of protection. And Lord, the children, Lord, to see the stats go up every day where our children are getting depressed. Suicide is up, Lord. We just ask that you allow your mercy and your love to move in the minds of our children. And Lord, as we prepare to handle the business of our city, we ask that you move in the midst of us and be pleased in what we are doing. This is my prayer, Lord, that I ask in your darling Son's name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's my pleasure tonight. A couple of weeks ago, we had Blackman came and we were able to give a proclamation. We still have one more Rutherford County school who had successful seasons and made it to the state finals. So tonight, it is my extreme pleasure to be able to present to you the Providence Christian Academy women's basketball team. Coach Tara James, if you'll come up. We have a proclamation for you. I want to read this before we introduce the players. And Coach James we didn't get to have them come up, but what year was it that you won a state championship?
2019.
2019, the ladies who were here, who were freshmen, I think, at the time, sophomores, won a state championship. So this year, they had a really successful season, made it to the state finals, came up a little short, but we're still proud of our Rutherford County team. So whereas through its discipline, dedication, and hard work, the Providence Christian Academy girls basketball team experienced a spectacular season, proudly representing Murfreesboro and Rutherford County. And whereas the Providence Christian Academy girls basketball team competition ended as runner-up in the state in their division, and whereas the team finished the 2021 season as runner-up in the TSSAA state playoffs, and whereas the Providence Christian Academy girls basketball team also beat the number one ranked team in the state, Lakewood Christian Academy, with a 53-48 win. And whereas Coach Tara James and the coaching staff of Providence Christian Academy girls basketball team will be forever designated for the storybook success of 2021. And whereas the Providence Christian Academy girls basketball team had two players, A.C. Markham and Mariah Edmonds, who surpassed the 1,000-point mark in the 2021 season. Beating Christ Presbyterian Academy 45-43 was another outstanding highlight of the 2021 season, with Aaliyah Callum making the game-winning shot. Now, therefore, I, Shane McFarland, Mayor of the City of Murfreesboro, Tennessee, on behalf of the entire City Council, do hereby proclaim May 6, 2021 is a day to recognize the Providence Christian Academy girls basketball team in Murfreesboro and encourage all citizens to join in recognizing and honoring the significant contributions, visibility, and notoriety the team and its coaches have brought to our city. Congratulations. Y'all come right here. Coach James is going to introduce the team.
All the girls bigger than Shane.
I'll do the freshmen first. So freshmen, you'll kind of come forward. Emily Wells is one of our freshmen. She's right here. And then we have Cora Beth Miller. There's Cora Beth right here. Allison DeBoard, also another freshman. Hi. Lily Loftus, right here. Those are our freshmen. And then sophomores, as you mentioned earlier, Abby McFarland. There's Abby right here. Mia Alexander, Maggie Markham. Maggie's over here. And then we have Kinley Carter. Kinley's right there. Junior, lone junior, Isabella Hardison, right there. And then seniors, Anna Kate Markham and Addison Melton. Aaliyah is not with us and Mariah is not with us, but this is our team. And then our coaches behind us, we have Lena Spry, Ray McCauley, and Taylor Brown. Thank you so much for having us.
Girls, if you'll just swing around over this way, just come on, more around, more around. Go, down this spot. Keep, more around, girl.
Towards her.
We're so awkward. We're so awkward. We're the most awkwardish. Yeah, if you're short, you There.
Girls, you girls go over here. Just move the chairs to that thing, we'll keep the chairs back. There you go. Okay, we'll take you right here. Right there.
Is it team 1, team B, team A, and team B?
Now we'll hold the camera up and we'll do the camera, not you. Right up there. All right, a couple more. Oops, and we'll do one more. That's good.
Thank you, ladies.
Oh, yeah, right.
And Ray. Sorry, Ray. All right, we have one more ceremonial item. I want to ask Chief Folks if he'll come up.
Thank you, Mayor. Members of Council. We wanted to recognize Assistant Chief Brian Lowe tonight. Assistant Chief Lowe is the director of our training division within the Murfreesboro Fire Rescue Department. Chief Lowe just completed a 4-year training program through the National Fire Academy. It's called the Executive Fire Officer Program. This program is a very intensive program. It consists of attending the Fire Academy for 2 weeks at a time, 4 consecutive years in a row. And after you're there for the first 3 years, you have to complete an applied research project, which is very intensive, has to be completed within 6 months. And those projects typically are essentially like a thesis or a theme paper that you would do to complete in a master's program. And so Chief Lowe completed this program in March of this year. He was recognized in a graduation ceremony virtually last week through the National Fire Academy. This program has had its challenges this year because of COVID, and he wasn't able to go back for their 4th year, and most of that was attended virtually. But we're extremely proud of Chief Lowe for attending this program, completing this program successfully, and he has represented Murfreesboro, the City of Murfreesboro and Murfreesboro Fire Rescue very, very well. And we just wanted to recognize him, and he got his certificate from the National Fire Academy for completing that program. Thank you.
You want to introduce your son?
Yeah, you told me not to, but, well, I'll just say this. I'm certainly happy to share this with the City of Murfreesboro. I was and certainly thrilled to represent the City of Murfreesboro at the National Fire Academy. A condition of that was the support of the city that I work for and the recommendation of the Chief Fire Officer, Chief Folks. I think the person who paid the most for this was my spouse, who had to give up about 4 years of summer vacation so that she could watch kids so I could go to the National Fire Academy. But she is paying the price again tonight as she's running kids around to ball games that are about to get washed out, I think. But I did bring one of my sons with me, Cade, and he's with me in the audience to support. So, but
Congratulations.
thank you.
I think we have one more basketball team coming. I think we have Siegel High School that will be here hopefully at our next meeting. Their men's team finished, I think they finished in the semifinals as well. So, and Brian, congratulations. I know that's, I think that's the first person that we've ever had go through that program and graduate. So, very well done. All right, council members, you have the consent agenda in front of you. Is there anything that needs to be removed from the consent agenda?
There's not any. I'll move for approval.
Second.
Motion is second. Ms. Wright, please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Skels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. LaLance.
Aye.
Mr. Martin.
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet.
Aye.
Mr. Wade.
Aye.
Mr. Wright.
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
Aye. We'll move to minutes. You have the approval of the council minutes from April 14th of 2021. Any additions or deletions to the minutes?
There are none. I'll move for approval. Second.
Motion is second. Ms. Wright.
Vice Mayor Skels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. LaLance.
Aye.
Mr. Martin.
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet.
Aye.
Mr. Wade.
Aye.
Mr. Wright.
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
Aye. All right, we'll move into new business. You have Resolution 20R10, Discovery School Track and Budget Amendment.
Hi, good evening. So we have two items on the agenda tonight, and the first item is the resolution for the Discovery School track. And the resolution, the Murfreesboro City Schools has a resolution recognizing the council's one-time donation of $20,500 to be used towards the cost of the installation and construction of the Discovery School track. And there's a corresponding budget amendment recognizing that on our books as well. And the Discovery School principal, staff, students, they're so excited about the track, and they are very grateful for the donation contribution towards the cost of this. It's really been grateful. So that is before you tonight.
All right, so you have the Resolution 21R10.
Move for approval. Second.
Motion is second. Ms. Wright, please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Skels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. LaLance.
Aye.
Mr. Martin.
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet.
Aye.
Mr. Wade.
Aye.
Mr. Wright.
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
Aye. You now have Resolution 21R15, fiscal year 21, and this is the amendment to the city schools budget.
Yes, this is amendment number 6, and this in the general purpose fund, and it is shifting some line items around within the general purpose fund to cover some additional expenses that were not originally budgeted or not budgeted enough in that particular line item. So this covers some property insurance, legal fees, some communication, and some connectivity fees.
Any questions?
Move for approval.
Second. Can I ask one quick question? Is there a dollar figure attached to this? I'm sorry, I'm not.
Is it not on the resolution? The exhibit behind it?
I
think it's net.
Shifting items. I don't see it. Oh, the attachment.
Yeah, yeah.
Where is the difference?
It's moving line
Just net to
items,
net.
so
Oh.
the dollar amounts are different,
But since we're talking about it, I did have a question. You see that, the 4761, 664?
Yeah.
It looks like a large portion of that adjustment has come from the adjustment to the regular instructional textbooks. Is there any impact? What is the impact of that?
One of our federal CARES Act funds, ESSER 1 and 2, they're covering the cost of textbooks. So that was an allowable expense in the CARES Act funding. So that freed up some general purpose money in that line item.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Wright, please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Skels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. LaLance.
Aye.
Mr. Martin.
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet.
Aye.
Mr. Wade.
Aye.
Mr. Wright.
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
Aye. Ms. Williams, I think this is the first time you've been in front of the council, right?
It is.
Awesome. How long have you been the new finance director?
9 weeks.
All right. Well, we're glad you're here.
Well, thank you. It's very nice to be here and very nice to meet everyone.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We'll move to Resolution 21R13. This is the Murfreesboro Electric Department Pension Plan Funding Policy.
Mayor, this policy was approved by the MED Pension Committee back last year, and we need to get this sent into the state, but it needs to be approved by the council as a resolution. They already have one at the state level that the old pension committee approved that did not come before council. And the only things really changing in this policy from what was already approved by the old committee is showing that the city's the administrator now. And there's a couple things in here the state asked that be added to the policy as a component of the policy, but substantively there's not much change.
If there are no questions, I'll move for approval.
Second.
Motion and second. Ms. Wright?
Vice Mayor Skels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. LaLance.
Aye.
Mr. Martin.
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet.
Aye.
Mr. Wade.
Aye.
Mr. Wright.
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
Aye. All right, we'll move to Ordinance 21012, fiscal year 22, recommended rate and price increases for water resources.
Mayor, City Council, good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to come before you this evening. As is my typical fashion when discussing rates and price increases, I've got some graphs that kind of tell the story here. This first chart before you, it kind of shows our cost of service study that we do every other year. You can see our last study was done in 2019. Overall, when you look at water and sewer rates together, we had an 11.2% over recovery. We are slated to have another cost of service done this fall to cover FY21. This is busy, but there's 3 big projects that we have that equal about $49 million that's coming up in the next 5 years. We have a 5-year cash reserve CIP of $100 million. The reason I bring this up is we run 2 scenarios on our pro forma. We run a scenario where we pay for that $49 million with cash, and then we run a scenario where we run that $49 million through a debt, assumed debt service. And then we see how that affects our rate design. So when you look at the $49, if we pay in cash, this shows our 11.2% overall recovery of $4.3 million roughly. We extrapolate our expenses over the next 5 years. We don't incur any debt, right, because we're paying for it with cash. So we estimate we've got about $3.9 million in expenses, and we have about $2.6 million in added revenue. That's due to the growth in the sewer system. We don't have any added revenue for growth in water because if you recall, our water district is fixed and surrounded by CUD, and all of the growth is really occurring in CUD's territory. So we're projecting an overall recovery of 7.1% in FY24. So if we look at alternate B, where we finance that $49 million through debt service, we still have the same over recovery for FY19. Then you can see our expenses go up to $5.9 million because of that added debt service. Same estimated revenue increase based on growth, So we're showing about a 2.2% over recovery overall 5 years from now, or 5 years from FY19. So those are both great scenarios, great places to be. It's with no rate increases overall. Where we run into a little bit of an issue is with our water recovery. One of the main goals here is that water revenue takes care of water expenses and debt. Sewer revenue takes care of sewer expenses and debt. It's not a good practice to subsidize sewer revenue for water revenue or for water expenses. So we recovered about 5.5% in our water revenue to expenses. What we're showing over the next 5 years in water exclusively is we're showing about $1.7 million in a deficit of added expenses to revenue, no new revenue because we're not experiencing the growth. And so we're looking at about a net, almost a net $1 million under recovery or minus 6% in the next 4 or 5 years. So this just sets it up so that when I ask for the rate increase in water, you understand this is the deal. So if we're looking at about $1 million over the next 5 years, what we're asking for is, if you see in this kind of the fifth column, we're asking for a 50-cent increase on the monthly bill for the residential customer. That's about less than 1%. That's on the minimum. That doesn't affect the commodity rate. Our commodity rates stay the same. This is just a increase from $8.22 per month on the minimum to an $8.72 charge. And you can see that average monthly bill is right at $65. So it's going to be 50 cents on about a $65 average water and sewer bill. So I bring into the fact that, and this recoups, you see down at the bottom right, about, say, $192,000, so roughly 20% of what we expect to fall over that next 5-year projection. So ideally, this would be done every year for the next 5 years, but since we have a cost of service study slated for later this fall, we'll readjust, right? We'll look and see, hey, and then we'll see if this rate increase, well, this rate increase won't impact our FY21 cost of service study, but we'll be able to see, did we shortfall what we expected in FY21? So this is the affordability. If you look at those purple dots, this is looking at a very low income earner in Murfreesboro, 1-person through 5-person family. We look at our affordability indexes for a water and sewer bill as 4% of that income, and we define a very low income earner as 50% of the median income. So it's half of really more like the first quartile. So you can see all those curves. What those lines underneath those purple dots mean is that we're under our affordability index quite significantly. So we always try to make sure that we're not affecting our low and fixed income earners. The proposed revisions so that's rates. Take the rates and push them aside now. We're talking more about operation and maintenance costs for installing water and meters and sewer cleanouts. We all know what's been going on lately. If you've gone to any kind of hardware store, material prices are going pretty high. PVC pipe has been up as much as 60%. So these are, in the PVC conduit, you see between 100 and 150%. We have had for the past over 10 years, that first column of present cost, that is an ordinance. Well, you can see those first 4 line items are in the ordinance. The last 2 are not. But those are when our operation and maintenance go out into the street and we make those taps for developers. So this is ultimately a cost that would be incurred by a builder or home builder or whomever, but we do the work in lieu of them having to subcontract that out. You can see, though, with the kind of 10 years worth of not making adjustments plus the price material cost increase, we're proposing a fairly large jump on the proposed cost. The sewer is not so much. This is just when we go and we install the sewer clean out. So we're looking at $100 to $170. That is an ordinance change. And as I stated, these installation charges for O&M work has not been updated in over 10 years. This is just really trying to get the cost recovery. And that's it. This is not a profit center.
Derek, can you walk through so visually we'll understand 1 inch outer road, in road, 2 inch outer road, in road? Give us a picture of what that looks like.
Yeah.
What customer is that?
The 1 inch complete tap out of the road, that is basically you're making a tap on the main line out in the roadway, or under the travel way we call it. So you make that tap on that main line. You run a 1 inch copper service line over to behind the curb. Then you effectively set the meter box and the meter about 7 feet behind the curb. And then the plumber, and when the meter's set, the plumber, the builder takes it from our meter into the house. So we don't incur those service line costs to the house, but it's basically to 7 feet behind the meter, or behind the curb where we set the meter in the meter box. The out of road versus in road, all that means is most of it's done in the road, and that's just includes having to backfill with stone and maybe put back some cold topping asphalt. And honestly, a lot of the times we have to go back and we will have to saw cut the asphalt, plane it out, and go back and put a nice patch or meet the street standard specification. We got to follow our own rules, right? So it's just more expense with stone and asphalt when it's in the roadway. The 2 inch meter, all that same setup. It's just you run a 2 inch piece of copper and you set a 2 inch meter, and the meter box is bigger. A stub, a 1 inch water stub, is just basically getting one behind the curb and not completing it with the meter box and the meter assembly, the water meter. The sewer clean out, all that is putting in a Y with a PVC cap and putting a meter box or a clean out box over the clean out. So I probably should have had a little visual for all this, but I apologize for not doing that.
But all residential.
We do commercial as well. Well, no, all residential, and occasionally I think we do allow commercial to make their own. No, I think we make, if it's a 1 or 2 inch tap, our guys do it. Now, if it's a 4 inch tap or larger, something for an industry or for a very large commercial complex, we will work with the contractor and we'll have an inspector watch them actually perform that work.
Is the difference between the 1 inch and 2 inch in road? It looks like you got the 1 inch is a 90% increase. The two inch is only a 30 or 35% increase. Is that basically because there's a fixed amount of cost in it when you got to go in there and cut the road out,
right,
so you don't have to recover as much? Right.
Exactly. So I think that's my last slide. Yeah, that's it. So again, questions of the tap stuff. Again, we're not. This is. I will go ahead and tell you that I was asked the question earlier by Ms. Scales Harris. You want to ask it again, or you want me to restate the question?
What about is this the absolute cheapest route we can take?
Right. So she asked me. So this is work that would have to be done through some other subcontractor if we didn't do it. And the fact that we don't charge profit, we don't have an overhead, we don't add anything to the cost associated with this, I would say that yes, we're the best route to go.
I've got just kind of a generic opinion about this. One, obviously it feels really good to look at the reserves that we have and the ability that and I know you say this all the time, you stood on the back of others, but the good work that you continue to do from a financial management standpoint at Water Resources, we're in a good position to be able to do some of those capital projects without reliance on debt service. So, I mean, you and others have done a great job to put us in a position to do that. I don't have an issue at all from a water rate adjustment standpoint with that minimum. I understand it. It makes sense. I don't have an issue with the increase here with what we're talking about. I do wish we had had the opportunity to go through and complete the conversation related to impact fees and how that will impact what we're doing. I know the two are not related. We're talking about enterprise fund and making sure that you're doing your job to look forward long-term to make sure we've got what we need to be vibrant and sustainable for capital improvement. So I understand the difference. I just, we don't know. I don't know what we're looking at from an impact fee standpoint, and we've been talking about that for a long time. My preference that we waited until we finished that conversation, not that it would change anything that we would do here, but I don't like knowing we've got a big blind spot out there related to that, and I don't know that waiting 2 or 3 months is going to make a huge difference here. Just my opinion. So,
is the ordinance? I'm sorry, I'm just I lost my place here. But is the ordinance? Is it both of those two? Is it kind of both the rate increase as well as the?
It is right now. It's currently drafted, but we could take those O&M installation costs off and come back second reading with just rates. I mean, I understand what you're saying, and we did send something out to the development community this week, just kind of a memo that said, explained what we're doing, to give us a call and we'll talk through it. We do have the funds to cover, to effectively subsidize and keep the rates, or keep those old costs there and just cover it, if you will. This was just, again, for
You mean for like a little while? I mean,
oh yeah, sure. Yeah, it's not. This isn't. Not making this rate adjustment on the O&M stuff is not going to materially affect us at all.
So I got a different question, and then we can talk about whatever we want to do on that. Just that. But can we go ahead and do a 5-year rate in this thing, and just adjust it if we need to on the? I mean that. We got a chance of not having to deal with it for 5 years versus we're setting ourselves up to definitely have to deal with it again in 6 months or whatever when we get the study done. If we're close enough, is that possible, or is it just the way it's written? Do we really just need to stick with this 1 year worth?
That's the way. Yes,
I'm good with it. I'm okay with it. I was just trying to knock it out if we can knock it out, I guess.
Well, the thing about the cost of service is the fact that we do it every other year, so you really recalibrate. So you make this minor adjustment in the revenue, and then you know what we really need to. We won't see the impact of that until FY23 study. So maybe we need to go ahead and do it. So not to get too long-winded, but this was a recommendation for last year for FY21. COVID came up. We didn't do it. We held off. So the FY21 cost of service study was supposed to capture what happened with this rate increase. Did we over-recover more than what we thought? Now, to hold this off to FY22 and to do an FY21 cost of service, we're not going to see kind of the impact of the rate increase. So we really, now that I'm sitting up here talking, just freewheeling it, we may need to just wait, maybe wait another year to do a cost of service study for FY22 if we get the rate adjustment done. Otherwise, it's going to be 2 years before we see what real kind of impact this has on cost of service. Does that make sense?
I mean, are you saying to get 2 years worth of rate?
Well, no, what I'm saying is to make this, we could probably do this rate increase and then hold off 2 years to do the next one.
I got you. Okay.
Is this July you're talking?
July 1 would be what we have it taken into effect right now.
The only comment I've got, and I'm going to abstain from the water tap, vote, because I buy a bunch of water taps, so I don't think I need to vote either way. But, I think we've had a conversation over the years that it's much better to incrementally increase. I mean, I know 3 years ago we had that discussion on property tax. That would have been much easier to, every year go up 3-4% as opposed to go up, even though if you take a penny and you double it, that's 100%. So it all is whatever the number is, but we're 80%, 107%, 21.5%, 91%, 18%, and 36% are our averages on those. And I would, I'm not going to vote on it, but on anything that we're increasing, I would rather see us do it incrementally as all of a sudden just bam, we're going to, double our cost on something.
I get it. Like I said, we could feather this in gradually if necessary. It's not going to materially impact us, and we can wait until the impact fee, more of that's revealed or put into place, and we can keep going. We can just peel that out of the second reading.
And that's really the reason I say that, because anything that's passed, anything that we vote on, it's getting passed along. I mean, that's just the ultimate. It's going to go back to either the buyer or the end user. So anything that we're increasing, it's not, it's just an increase on what the overall cost is going to be.
So can I ask a question on this real quick, on this, just on the tap piece of this, the O&M piece? Can we, from a budgetary standpoint, can we say, could we make it a 2-year phase in tonight and not have to come back to it again in a year? I mean, could we say we're going to move it this year?
Come back and do an ordinance. I mean,
and then next year.
That may be an Adam question. I'm not sure if we could do a 2-year.
Can we do a 2-year phase in? So, for example, if you got it going from $1,000 to $1,200, can we say, well, we want to absorb, we want to take on half of that tonight, but we want the effective date for the other half to be 1 year from today, and that's already set in stone if we vote on it tonight.
I think if you could do it. I don't see any reason why you couldn't do that.
Would that line up with your? Would that line up with your? Maybe what you're thinking on your getting your cost study. I mean, and maybe that kind of kills two birds with one stone, where we ease this at least over a 2-year period instead of doing it all at once. But we don't have to tackle it again in a year, and we only absorb half of it right now until we get through the impact fee discussion. I'm just kind of thinking maybe we're killing more than one bird with a stone here.
You're talking about half, meaning cut the water tap fees in half?
I'm talking about the increase, absorb half the increase. So the one that went from 1,000 to 1,215, whatever that increase is, the percentage that he just laid out, we're going to take half of it now, and the other half happens a year from now. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we vote on it once, we get it done on the O&M part, yes. And then we take the rate, go ahead and knock out the rate, because it's just a 1-year rate deal anyway.
Right.
So we go ahead and.
The rate increase is
Still in.
Still in.
Yeah, the rate increase still in. We absorb half the increases that you got in here. We're to full recovery in 2 years. We're doing a cost study. By the time that all gets done, we may have to adjust it again in 2 years, but we've eased the cost in for the people who are going to absorb it. It's only 2 years instead of 10, but I don't know. I'm just trying to think. Is that?
I have another question. The 192 number, additional revenue that the changes, is that the water adjustment, or is it the meter adjustment in addition to?
That's just the rate. That's the commodity rate adjustment.
Any feel for what that would do? I didn't see it in here. The meter adjustment would do based on historically.
So theoretically, we have an in and an out. We incur that expense, and then we get recouped that. So there should be a net. If we did our math right and O&M did their homework properly, we would expense it and then recover it through the tap or the connection fee, or the whatever we're calling it, or the tap fee.
I'm just trying to get a feel. If we waited 90 days, what's the number we're talking about missing because we didn't make the adjustment?
Right.
You know what I mean?
And I can tell you, quite honestly, we're not setting that many water meters at this time. Again, the water side of our business is the utility business is right. We're the donut hole inside of the donut. So most of the water meter taps are being done by CUD.
What's our cost of water taps right now there?
What are you talking? Well, there's right now for a 1-inch complete tap and meter, it's $1,000. That's the cost for now. If you want to talk about the system development charge, the capacity buy-in, that's a different. We're not asking to touch those. Those have been in place since 2009 as well. That makes sense?
I would just point out that if we were to do that 2-year phased-in approach, on second reading we would bring back, the ordinance would be presented differently, more clearly to structure it that way, probably in the form of 2 tables, or maybe 1 table with 2 columns. So,
y'all, I'm good. I mean, I was just sort of thinking out loud, and maybe we could get it knocked out. But I'm good with whatever y'all want to do.
I'm good with what Darren has said, 50 cent. I'm good with that. I make the motion to approve
Just as it is.
as is.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion?
So we're not changing anything, it's as presented?
I'm okay with it. I mean, whatever everybody wants.
All right. Ms. Wright, please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Skels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. LaLance.
Aye.
Mr. Martin.
No.
Mr. Shacklet.
Aye.
Mr. Wade.
Aye.
Mr. Wright.
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
Abstain. All right, we're going to move into land use matters. We have the sewer allocation variance, and this is on Memorial Boulevard for Dutch Brothers Coffee. Mr. Plumley.
Thank you, Mayor McFarland, and good evening, Mayor McFarland and members of council. I'm going to fill in for Mr. McKnight on these next two items. We have two sewer variance requests, both of which are along the west side of Memorial Boulevard. They're on the former Haynes property, which a developer called Track West Partners has purchased and is developing 4 commercial lots in front of the Park Apartments, 2 of which he has proposed food service tenants, the first of which is Dutch Brothers Coffee, which is a standalone coffee shop. This will be 2 lots to the south of the Aldi. They're requesting a sewer variance of 5.95 single-family unit equivalents. And staff views the advantages of job creation and sales tax revenue of greater benefit than the requested additional sewer capacity. Be happy to answer any questions.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Ms. Wright, please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Skels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. LaLance.
Aye.
Mr. Martin.
No.
Mr. Shacklet.
Aye.
Mr. Wade.
Aye.
Mr. Wright.
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
Aye. All right, we now have a sewer allocation variance on Memorial Boulevard for Wendy's.
Yes, sir. The second one is just 2 lots down from the coffee shop you just considered. This is for a Wendy's restaurant. This would be right on the corner of the entrance to the apartment complex and those out parcels I just mentioned a moment ago. When Huddleston Steel indicated in its letter that they would need a 5.5 single-family unit equivalent variance. However, the Water Resources Department calculated that they would only need a 2.5 single-family unit equivalent variance, and so they have made that request. Staff views the advantages of job creation and sales tax revenues of greater benefit than the requested additional sewer capacity. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Move for approval.
Motion and second. Ms. Wright, please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Skels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. LaLance.
Aye.
Mr. Martin.
No.
Mr. Shacklet.
Aye.
Mr. Wade.
Aye.
Mr. Wright.
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
Aye. Thank you, Mr. Plumley. All right, we'll move to, on motion, we have a Volvo loader equipment purchase, solid waste. Russell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, council. Before you is approval to purchase Volvo LH120 loader for the solid waste department. This is through Scott Equipment under a state contract and is funded in CIP FY21. I'm available for any questions.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion and second. Ms. Wright, please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Skels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. LaLance.
Aye.
Mr. Martin.
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet.
Aye.
Mr. Wade.
Aye.
Mr. Wright.
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
Aye. All right, we have the purchase of 3 side loader trucks.
Yes, thank you again. Before you is approval to purchase 3 New Way Sidewinder automated side loader trucks for our garbage collection. This will be on a Peterbilt 520 chassis, and these funds are approved in the FY21 CIP budget.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion and second. Ms. Wright.
Vice Mayor Skels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. LaLance.
Aye.
Mr. Martin.
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet.
Aye.
Mr. Wade.
Aye.
Mr. Wright.
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
Aye. All right, we now have the purchase of a vacuum leaf truck. Raymond.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Hope to find you well. What you have before you here on motion is to approve a vac truck for the street department in the amount of $214,000. This will be paid for out of the FY21 CIP budget, and I'm here to answer any questions you guys may have for me.
Move for approval.
Second.
Can't we just get you a bunch of rakes? That's what we have at our house.
That'd be good.
All right, we have
I thought he said rates. I was like,
rakes.
Took me a minute.
Motion and a second, sorry.
No.
Vice Mayor Skels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. LaLance.
Aye.
Mr. Martin.
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet.
Aye.
Mr. Wade. Mr. Wright.
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
Aye, thank you, Raymond. All right, we now have the solid waste 10-year plan update for Rutherford County. Mr. Gore.
Mayor, City Council, again, good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to come before you and present this item. So this is something I sent to you or included in the council agenda fairly hastily, and I tried to send some more information out to you this afternoon as to kind of the why. So if you'll bear with me, I'm going to kind of go through what this document is and its purpose and why we're talking about it. So why ask for an adoption of a 10-year solid waste plan update tonight? As you all know, Republic Services recently applied for an 82.5% landfill expansion at Middle Point. Republic's application must go through the Central Tennessee Region Solid Waste Board prior to TDEC, Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation, and be consistent with Rutherford County's 10-year solid waste plan. So Rutherford County's current 10-year solid waste plan does not prohibit any options, including an expansion of Middle Point landfill. The 10-year update that I have before you tonight to be considered eliminates the Republic landfill expansion as an acceptable option. Staff considers the 10-year update invalid or at least not reflective of the local governing body's policy positions without the City Council and County Commission adopting it prior to it being considered by the Central Tennessee Region Solid Waste Board. So I don't believe this has ever been brought to you before in past years. This has been a staff product that I believe Mr. Joey Smith and maybe Mac Nolan have worked together and submitted to TDEC. We've just recently found this has a significant importance with regards to this board has the ability to deny a new landfill or a landfill expansion if that landfill expansion or that new landfill is inconsistent with the 10-year plan. Right now, as I stated, that the 10-year plan does not deem that expansion application by Republic to be inconsistent. So the question that I also sent out is, said, does this put us, if by approving this plan, does this put us at a disadvantage? There's no disadvantages to the city on continued free solid waste disposal. Updating this 10-year plan and opposing Republic's current expansion does not interfere with Republic's current operations, and as such does not interfere with the city's ability to dispose of solid waste at no charge. And there's also no disadvantages on working with Republic and Middle Point in the future. I think this is a very important point to bring up, and that this plan, per state law, may be revised at any time to reflect subsequent developments in the region. Okay, so for example, if the RFP process going on right now at the county, if Republic is selected as the best option in their opinion to move forward, and they see some limited or type of expansion at Middle Point that could serve possibly maybe just Rutherford County and eliminate a lot of the incoming trash from outside counties, we can come in and change this 10-year plan update to reflect that. So I don't want you to take, basically today this 10-year plan is based on the fact that they did not withdraw their application. The odor is still, I know we received dozens of complaints about the odor, and until those things change, I think.
Dozens today?
I'm sorry?
Dozens, we've received more than dozens, right? Are you saying just a
dozens in an annual period. I'm talking hundreds if you want to go back to for the past 10 years. So I think until they demonstrate that they're a good neighbor, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, this is just what the document's saying, and if you all agree with it, that's what I'm asking for your adoption tonight. So I'm just going to go through some quick highlights, what this means. So this was modeled after the 2018 Solid Waste Vision document that was developed by the Solid Waste Advisory Committee that they were put together in 2016 with the aid of Gershman, Brickner, and Bratton, or GBB, consultant. What the report vision document did was it projected waste generation in Rutherford County This shows you the breakdown of private hauler garbage, Murfreesboro only, the recycling tons, recycling center garbage, and so forth. So that was pulled out of the vision document. Takes it through 2035. There was also some forecasted expenses when Middle Point closes. The green blocks and then the orange blocks underneath the green talk about operating costs and debt associated with transfer stations being constructed and starting an operation between 2024 and 2026, and that there would be a mixed waste processing facility in place by 2030. And a lot of that was used, and I'm bringing this fee structure back to your attention we just talked about at the workshop. A lot of the assumptions I used to go in and develop what it would cost the citizens of Murfreesboro on a monthly basis when that landfill closed, you can see that jump around 2025, 2026, going from $13.50 to $21.50 to cover those anticipated expenses. So there's some other elements that we did update. The discussion of an interlocal agreement versus an authority, but there's no specific recommendation. It allows that to be determined later. There's county-led interlocal agreements where the county would be the hub, and they would just enter into interlocal agreements with the various municipalities in the county and construct the contracts for disposal, recycling. If there's another Class 3, Class 4, this could be done while Middle Point is still open. There's another potential for a new solid waste authority. This is a similar model maybe to Consolidated Utility District. It's a quasi-governmental entity that is more of a utility, but it would have a monopoly. It would control all of the flow of solid waste in the county, and it could set up franchise areas and bid those out. But that would relinquish control to a governing board overseeing that quasi-governmental utility. Again, another item that we looked at the minimum facilities for an interlocal, whether it's an interlocal agreement or an authority. We talked about a north and a south site for a mixed waste processing facility, source separated recyclables and C&D materials. And we've also incorporated the fact that the city's been looking at a site for a transfer station right off of Joe B. Jackson Parkway interchange. So just there's a potential possible northern site transfer station and materials management site at the old Rutherford County landfill property. South, there's the rock quarry that the Rutherford County operates. There's a potential for a southern site transfer station, materials management, and then of course we're looking at property here that would be a Murfreesboro site for a transfer station, and obviously there's potential there for future materials management as well and recyclables. Kind of the last thing, it brings up the fact that the county has been going through I guess a robust RFI, RFP process to determine the long-term solution for solid waste. All of that RFI, RFP process has been founded on the fact that the Middle Point landfill is expected to close in 2027. So there's really been no long-term planning effort by the county, in my opinion, that I've seen that takes into account that landfill would be almost doubled in size. And this is just, they received nine, I know it's hard to read, I had to clip that out, but they received 9 RFP responses that are currently under review. I think they're reviewing Republic's proposal May 12th, and there may be 1 or 2 proposals after that they will be reviewing. So again, in large part, this document will be updated fairly soon when if the county goes through the process of what they see as their future. And if Murfreesboro and this body agrees that that's in the best interest of the citizens of Murfreesboro, we can join in that endeavor. If it's to our mutual benefit. But when that is determined, I expect that I'll be back up here in front of you to ask for this 10-year plan to be revised again. So that's kind of it in a nutshell, and available for questions and discussion.
Any questions for Mr. Gore?
This has got the county seal on it. Are we representing this as a?
This is a draft document. I have a considered by date on there, and I'll take the county. If the county doesn't want to consider this document, all that'll get scratched.
But this is, the document was prepared by us.
It was prepared by us. I asked once the agenda was published, I asked Mike Cush with the Public Works Committee to introduce it to the Public Works Committee and to see if they would be interested in endorsing, and also the full county commission would consider accepting this 10-year plan. I watched that meeting. There was some concern, I believe, that they feel as though if they reject the application or reject the idea of a landfill expansion, that would somehow be construed as interfering with current operations, and that Middle Point could stop taking their solid waste at the landfill. I don't know their agreement, in earnest. So I would hope that they're having an attorney look at that to see if that's, to me, opposing something that's a future condition doesn't affect current operations. But again, I'm not an attorney, and I don't know I'm not interpreting their agreement. I will say I gave them an alternative 10-year plan that's kind of a markup of what Nolan had prepared, and if they're more amenable to adopting something like that, they have maybe two options to look at. I got the one option in front of you all. I gave them a couple of options, but in essence, both options state unequivocally that we're opposed to a Republic landfill expansion. If they don't agree with that, then they shouldn't adopt it.
Does the state agency look at a municipality, or do they look at the county for the direction as to what the plan is?
They look towards the county. And in this instance, they look toward the Central Tennessee Regional Board, which is Rutherford, Cannon, Coffee, and Warren.
Rutherford, Cannon, Coffee, and Warren.
Warren, did I say Warren twice?
No, that's right. I think it's important that we note, one, after we've had several calls with, I have different commissioners over the last couple of days. I think reiterated, I said I can't speak for the council. I feel confident on this, that we want to work with the county, however we can. But this 10-year document is very consistent with the committee that Kurt and I sat on, that we started in 2016. As a matter of fact, I think we met here several times, and we met over at the courthouse, but we went through a whole process where it was very clear that Middle Point 2.0 was on the very bottom of what should be considered. And even when the document came back, the entire Solid Waste Commission said that shouldn't be an option. So, and then, even going back to 2018, when Mayor Burgess asked the county commission to allow Republic to do core samples on the old Rutherford County landfill, the commission voted unanimously not to allow that happen, because that could cause an expansion on the old county landfill. So I think the document that Darren has before us is very consistent with what has been said really since 2018, that that a landfill should be on the very bottom list of expansion. And again, I think it's important to note, per TCA code, this agreement could be changed daily. If something changed, this agreement or the solid waste plan can be amended at any time if things change. The other thing that I think is very important was on a Zoom call on Tuesday. Republic. I'm going through all these agreements of all the different people we've read through. They have not withdrawn their application. They have put a pause on their application, but I think Representative Terry asked the very pointed question: does that stop, even though you've put a pause on your application, does that stop you from working on the next steps of your application to submit to phase 2? And they said no. So, which means I think as a business plan, they would be working on their application. They're just not going to submit phase 2. So I think it's pretty, in my opinion, it's pretty clear. This is something that is pretty easy to put in writing. And I had this same conversation with Mayor Ketron, that I think we're putting in writing that we don't feel like for Murfreesboro that this is a viable option to increase the landfill 93%. So.
Mayor, I think you're correct, but that's the same thing we said in 2016 and 2018, that the city was not in favor of expansion, and I think that's how we feel today.
Yep.
Is that a motion?
It can be, yes.
I'll second it.
All right, we have a motion and discussion, or a second. Any other discussion?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
The only question that I have is that, and I wish it was off the table too. The expansion was not going to be and I think the voice of the city and the county together to say that is what I'm hoping we can get to. And I don't know if it's appropriate for us to go forward with for the plan without them alongside us and saying that, advocating for that position. I agree with everything that's in the document, but I hope we don't put an obstacle for it to move forward when it ends up being our body leading with this. But maybe, like I say, I guess we could go ahead and do it and see. But the intent would be, I hope we're going to join hands with the county, because their voice is the one that the state's going to listen to.
All right.
And that's, our voice is important, and it's certainly the biggest part of this.
Bill, I'll tell you that Darren sent, sort of an explanation of this document, why that we were considering this, and he sent that to Commissioner Cush, Mr. Nolan, Mayor Ketron, and I followed back up, asking that they would share that with the entire commission on why that we were moving forward with this. So I think if you're a county commissioner and you're watching this, I think we want to be able to work together on this and be part of the solution. This is not in my opinion, this is not Murfreesboro saying we want to go alone, but I do think that in times like this that Murfreesboro has shown we've been very consistent about leading, and I think that's what we're wanting to do, is to help lead the process and be leaders to say, for our community, knowing what we've had to deal with, that we want to be part of the RFP process and we want to partner with the county however we can, but this should be something that we're not willing to lead on a large expansion.
And Councilman Shacklet, I'll be the first to tell you that this has been done quickly, and it's been done quickly because I was not aware of the authority of this board. I was not aware of the portent of this 10-year document. And when it struck me and I figured it out, I had really no option other than to take a proactive position. And I knew that would rub people the wrong way, honestly, because the county is really supposed to be the lead here. So I knew that wouldn't come across well to certain people, and I normally wouldn't do that. I normally really like to collaborate and pull everybody together and have some sincere discussion and kind of get buy-in. This has just been on such a short fuse that I have not been able to employ the tactics that I normally employ when we kind of build a team. So I knew that would bother some folks, and I've apologized. I've tried to say, look, that's not something that I'm not trying to usurp any power or authority from the county. I'm just saying this has got to be done quickly. And here's a dartboard. If you don't like this dartboard, if you don't like the template or the style in which this was done, if you don't want that county seal on it, or if you don't want your name on it, you want to look at a different format, then let's talk about a different format. I think the bottom line I'm trying to say is, do you endorse, under the current conditions where we've got odor, we've got kind of the bad neighbor of this landfill, do you currently endorse its expansion, or do you reject it? And again, that's the question, and everything else is style. And I may not have hit everybody's style properly, but I've done the best I can.
Well, I appreciate the work that went into doing this, and I know it was under the gun and the time frame for trying to make a point with the people that will actually make the evaluation. We have to put the documents in place to have something that sets what the will of our community is. So I understand the reason of doing that, and I hope the County Commission understands that that was the only reason. I think we're on the same page as far as what our goal is, right. Just to appreciate each other's role in that process, and that we're going to get to the same conclusion, hopefully. But
Councilman Shacklet, the last thing I want to say, and I don't want to feel like I'm dominating this discussion. We've just been in so many meetings over the last couple of weeks, especially the meeting that Senator Reeves put together on Tuesday, and everyone that was in that meeting made it very clear that they were not, I mean, Senator Reeves, Senator White, Representative Terry, all made it very clear that they were not proponents of an expansion. So I think, you know, the where we are moving forward, once we look at these documents and we make the decision, I think Darren eloquently put it, either when Southern terms, you're either for us or you're against us. So, you know, you're either want an expansion or you don't want an expansion. So it's, you know, one of the two. And not to say that there may not be a hybrid approach years down the road when composting and those things come in, that there could be that. But now, based on what we've been dealing with, it's either option A or option B. But the second thing, you know, we as a council, and I think we'll discuss this, you know, possibly at the retreat, there are other options that as a council we are going to have to look at as well on, you know, different options that Adam's been working on, Craig has been working on where we're going to be. So it's really a tough option, some tough options moving forward. But I know Darren's been working. I think you worked on this last Wednesday night while you were in Crossville, if I remember, because I got an email from you at like 11 o'clock at night. So he's been working hard on it.
Appreciate that.
So, any other questions? Thank you all for listening. It's hard to get all of this across and it not being a public meeting. That's just the way it works. So, all right, have a motion and a second. Ms. Wright, please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Scales Harris.
Aye.
Mr. LaLance.
Aye.
Mr. Martin.
Abstain.
Mr. Shacklet.
Aye.
Mr. Wade.
Aye.
Mr. Wright.
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
Aye. All right, thank you, Mr. Gore. The next step, will you, I guess, be sending this to the county? What's the next step?
Well, I've already submitted it to the county, and I've also, like I said, submitted something else that was really more of a markup of what Mac Nolan had put together, and said, if you want, and I've talked with Adam, if they want to adopt some other form of this, but as long as the content is essentially the same, that's what I'm hoping to do.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you. Well, you have a clear message, I think, from the council.
Great. Perfect. Got it.
All right.
I think I'm
all right. We now have to talk about drying biosolids.
So I'll go. This is where Craig put all my consent items on regular agenda, just to see how long if I could stay up here and keep talking. Okay, so the picture in front of you, hopefully on your screen right now, this is the really it's bigger than a pilot. It really was a small scale exercise to take one of our rotary presses, one of 8, and those dewater the sludge, and then we would take it through this dryer. We were given a performance guarantee that in essence said that they could meet certain throughput, a certain amount of gas usage, and it would create a Class A biosolid, a Class A in its exceptional quality, a Class A EQ. That, in essence, is a beneficially reusable product that can be applied to lawns. It can be applied to sports fields. It's a soil amendment, a fertilizer, if you will. The small scale, they failed to meet their performance guarantee. They did not achieve the specifications that they said they could, and part of the contract says if they could not do that, that we could send this dryer back, and they would reimburse the city the full cost associated with that dryer. So I bring to you this table. The dryer was almost $650,000. We did have some engineering, some installation charges, controls integration, miscellaneous. We're asking for you tonight is the $14,657, which is really a disconnect. Somebody's going to come in and disassemble this thing and put it on a truck and send it back to Kentucky. But I'm working with Roman Hankins to draft a letter that asks Griffin to write us a check back for $648,750. So while we did incur some costs, it's not insignificant, but at the same time, I think it's kind of the cost of doing the pilot, in my opinion, or cost of doing the small scale study. If we can get the bulk of that reimbursement back from Griffin, I think now we know. I was on a Zoom call this morning with another dryer company that we're not back up against the wall. If you understand, this whole drying endeavor was based on anticipated landfill closure, where we were no longer going to be able to dump our biosolids free tipping fees at the middle point. So we were going to create this beneficially reusable product. So tonight I would just ask for the $14,657 task order with John Bouchard, but I'm available for more questions if you have them.
Mr. Gore, when we did this back several years ago, this was also coming on the heels of, we had worked with Representative Terry, that we were also looking at being mandated by the state on having to dry our biosolids. So that was something that we committed, that we were working through.
Right. The full scale cost of this is part of that $49 million that I showed you in the pro forma. We have about $16 million programmed in it. It may be a little more expensive than that now, but we've got money set aside to handle this.
Darren, in the work that you're doing now, looking at other dryers, do you anticipate that there'll be another opportunity to participate in a program like this?
No, I don't. I think I talked with a particular company this morning, and there's really nobody else, I think, that's going to offer this deal to us. We're going to go build a dryer, and you guys can test it for a year, and then if it doesn't work, we'll take it back. This was kind of a sweetheart deal, if you will, with this one particular company. It's because they were new in the business. The ones we're talking to now, they're just much more established. They have dryers all over the country, and they're like, look, we can go find somebody's biosolids exactly like yours and go show you where we've successfully implemented a dryer, and you can go take a look.
But you think the technology exists where we could accomplish what we're trying to do?
Absolutely. This was supposed to be the least cost, highest benefit solution. So they can do it. I mean, I don't want to, they could actually get Class A EQ biosolids. It was just taking a heck of a lot more natural gas than what we thought it should. And so we'll get, it's easily done. It's just trying to find that best, cheapest deal.
Move for approval.
Second. Motion is second. Ms. Wright, please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Skels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. LaLance.
He's gone.
He's gone.
Mr. Martin.
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet.
Aye.
Mr. Wade.
Aye.
Mr. Wright.
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
Aye. All right, we'll move to, tell me what
MR Systems.
MR Systems Master Service Agreement Amendment
Yeah.
1. This is Water Resources as well.
This is exciting stuff. So MR Systems, we have a master services agreement. We've had it for 3 years. This is their first amendment that gives us another 3 years. It's professional services for instrumentation controls, SCADA systems. It does process optimization, wide area networking, and IT interface. It basically, again, like I said, extends the MSA an additional 3 years, and they've just increased their hourly rates by 4%. So that's a pretty good deal. So we would ask for your approval for this amendment to our master services agreement.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second.
Vice Mayor Skels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. Martin.
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet.
Aye.
Mr. Wade.
Aye.
Mr. Wright.
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
Aye. All right, we'll move to the Oakley Sewer Pump Station replacement.
Yes, sir. This pump station was installed in 1997. If you kind of see the pictures in front of you, it's not weathered very well. We've had quite a significant amount of noise complaints resulting from this particular pump station. You can see that we kind of put together a shed housing over it, and we tried to insulate it with some type of insulating material. That's what the blue walls inside looks like. But in essence, the accessibility, the fact that the sheds needs to be removed, it's starting to dilapidate. The operation and maintenance of this pump station, it's just time for a replacement. So again, originally installed in 97, the housing in 2007. The wet well, it's hard. We can't get to the wet well for cleaning or bypass pump. Control panel's obsolete. So it's a $273,890 total cost replacement. Again, this is with John Bouchard and Sons, our master service, or our kind of our service agreement with them. But we set aside $250,000 annually for a pump station. It's a sinking fund that we put $250,000 in each year to do just this kind of thing. Take some of these smaller pump stations and rehab them or replace them. So we would ask for your approval to replace the pump station 27 using our John Bouchard and Sons.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Ms. Wright.
Vice Mayor Skels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. Martin.
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet.
Aye.
Mr. Wade.
Aye.
Mr. Wright.
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
Aye. All right, we now have precast fascia replacement.
Again, pictures. This fascia, this aggregate fascia that's on the top of 5 buildings. We opened bids in April, and this fascia has been in place since the early 90s. Or maybe longer, actually. It may be almost 40 years. It's just in a state of disrepair, starting to spall off. Obviously, there's a little bit of a safety issue. I wouldn't want any of this stuff coming down on my head. But they did just get one bidder. They had several come out and give their estimate of what they thought it would cost, but those particular individuals did not submit a bid. But we got the one. It's $148,500 from Williams Restoration and Waterproofing. We had $200,000 budgeted, so it's good under budget, and so we would ask for your approval on this, awarding this bid.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second.
Vice Mayor Skels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. Martin.
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet.
Aye.
Mr. Wade.
Aye.
Mr. Wright.
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
Aye. Mr. Gordon, did you just wait for like a couple of months to spend as much money as we're spending right now?
Yeah, I guess it's
all right.
my staff. It's their fault.
T-Dot Thompson Lane, Eli proposal final design.
Yeah, thank you again. This is the Thompson Lane widening that's going to occur from Broad Street out to 231 Lebanon Pike. I've got 3 slides here just to kind of give you the magnitude. This was kind of a little bit of a sticker shock issue, but I didn't go into all waterline items, but we have an estimated cost of about $4.6 million in waterline improvements associated with this roadway widening. This kind of shows you the Breckenridge Drive to Siegel Road section. The blue is water, the green is sewer. We've got about $3.4 million worth of sewer improvements in fall, so that's an $8 million construction project. I think we had about $3 million programmed, so it's good to know, but it's a lot of money. ELI, they did submit, they call it the A date submittal in January of 2020 for $175,000. The B date proposal that you have before you today is in $233,950, and that gets kind of the design done, ready for construction. So we're asking for a $233,950 increase and we knew this was coming, but an increase. Go ahead and allot that second allotment to ELI for the work done for the class or for the B date proposal. So I'm available for questions on that too.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Ms. Wright, please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Skels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. Martin.
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet.
Aye.
Mr. Wade.
Aye.
Mr. Wright.
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
All right. All right, we'll move into the Thompson Lane, upgrading the Thompson Lane pump station.
Right. So I'd like to try to give you guys pictures. This is the Thompson Lane control panel. This is a sole source procurement because Bertle Camp Automation, they are kind of the sole source rep for Mitsubishi VFDs. Just to kind of get a little geeky on you, what's pretty cool about these Mitsubishi VFDs, they can actually tell when some of these sewer pumps start to clog, and they can automatically reverse the motors. So we have had one in place on a particular pump station that we were having to clean out every week. We haven't had to clean it out in months because of this VFD recognizing that there's some friction, and it flips the motor to reverse the motor, which actually pushes the clog out. So really cool stuff in the world of sanitary sewer pump station, right? I mean, that's. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. So this is going to be it's only a $38,353 deal, but it's $11,600 under budget. We're going to install 3 new VFDs, this Mitsubishi style on Thompson Lane, and install a new HMI panel, which is a human machine interface acronym. So we'd ask for your approval. And I can talk more about reversing sewage pumps if you'd like.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second.
Vice Mayor Skels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. Martin.
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet.
Aye.
Mr. Wade.
Aye.
Mr. Wright.
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
Aye. Darren, thank you for all this, and thank you for not only presenting it to us, but presenting it where we can understand it with all of the technicalities and the things that go on. So we really appreciate that.
All right, great. I appreciate you all's time. Thank you very much.
All right, do we have any licensing?
We do not.
Okay, no licensing. All right, we have recommendations on 2 boards and commission. The Murfreesboro Housing Authority, there has to be a resident that serves on the Murfreesboro Housing Authority, and Thomas Rowe and the MHA board recommended, I don't have the, let me get the applicant here in front of me, at the appointment.
Sonia Wright.
Yeah, Ms. Wright. Any questions?
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion is second. Ms. Wright?
Vice Mayor Skels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. Martin.
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet.
Aye.
Mr. Wade.
Aye.
Mr. Wright.
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
Aye. We also now have to appoint to the Solid Waste Planning Board. This is the board that we were talking about earlier, the Central Tennessee Region Solid Waste Planning Board. Mr. Smith had been our representative for years, and we are recommending Darren Gore to be our representative on behalf of the city.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Ms. Wright, please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Skels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. Martin.
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet.
Aye.
Mr. Wade.
Aye.
Mr. Wright.
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
Aye. All right, we have one statement to be paid. This is an invoice for a grinder repair.
Yes, Mayor, this was not something that had been before you before. During the repair of the grinder, it was determined there was other damage they could not see until they'd taken it apart, and because it's over $25,000, I needed to bring it before you for approval to pay the invoice.
Any questions?
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Ms. Wright, please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Skels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. Martin.
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet.
Aye.
Mr. Wade.
Aye.
Mr. Wright.
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
Aye. All right, do we have any other business from staff?
Just a reminder, council, our retreat is next Monday and Tuesday, 10th and the 11th, and then we'll meet on the week following on the 20th and reserve the 27th, and we'll see if we have items to bring.
Okay. Council members? Craig, I just wanted to ask if the council's okay if we could add one item to our agenda for the retreat. We all received another email today from Ms. Smith, who continues to send us emails about the accidents at Asbury Lane. So we got a nice picture of a car that had a rear end accident on Asbury, a pretty bad accident. So I think we need to talk about Asbury Lane at our retreat and sort of what our options are in that overall area and what that entails.
We'll add it.
Okay. All right. Seeing none, no other business, we'll stand adjourned.